out on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope. Thank you so much for being here. It is the heart of Texas high school football season, and we'll get started just here shortly. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And at the start, we would like to recognize one of our very loyal sponsors, our friends over at Marty B's Place. Marty, I've always enjoyed the range of menu items, whether you want to go in there for just an appetizer or a full entree. Talk to us a little bit about the selection there at Marty B's.
Yeah, thank you, John. The menu was uniquely crafted with a couple things in mind. And one thing I'm most proud of is that all of our meats are hormone-free, antibiotic-free, humanely raised, and fed an all-natural diet. So it truly makes a difference in the quality and of the flavor of the food. For example, we're primarily barbecue is what we serve the largest amount of. And so all of our Tex-Mex options have smoked meats that we use to prepare those items. And then we have one of the best hamburgers you'll ever put your mouth around. All of our beef comes from 44 farms down in Cameron, Texas. We cut our New York strip, our filet, and our ribeye in-house. And then all of the trimmings from that, we fresh ground into our hamburger patty. And then we have our buns fresh baked from a bakery down in Houston. Unbelievable burger. And then, of course, the steaks speak for themselves, some of the best steaks you'll ever eat. So our menu is wide in range, but narrow in that it's just super focused on quality. So come out and enjoy salads, steaks, tacos, burgers. We have it all.
Marty, anytime we have friends or family come in from out of town, we always take them to Marty B's Place because it's such a great Texas experience, and everybody just loves it. So thank you so much for being part of the Dinko Gridiron Show. Man, that was our friend Marty B. Man, a great Texas tradition right down there in Bartonville. But Grayson Nolette, he is a grad student at the University of North Texas, has a great opportunity. He normally calls the games for the Louisville Fighting Farmers. Unfortunately, that game got canceled this week, and he is on assignment actually in Shreveport, Louisiana, covering the state diving and swimming meet in Louisiana. So great opportunity for Grayson, and he should be back next week. But like I mentioned at the top, Mike Leslie will be joining me here shortly, and we may have another special guest. So thank you all for tuning in. Hey, I do want to let you know we've just added, we try to connect with our community, and we've got a new community line. If you can text, I'll put it up on the screen, and for your podcast listeners, if you can just text the word DENCO, DENCO, to 214-416-9771, you'll be part of our Dinko Gridiron community, and that way we can send out maybe special messages when we go live or other segments, maybe special things from some of our friends of the show. But just text DENCO, DENCO, to 214-416-9771 to join the Dinko Gridiron community. We'd appreciate that. So, well, hey, first up, and I'm sure I'll talk to Mike Leslie about this, tonight, round 2, the Argyle Eagles take on the Stephenville Yellow Jackets. It's going to be at Globe Life Park. Actually, our own Quincy Horde is going to be over there covering that. And, wow, Argyle comes off a 79-0 beat down of North Dallas just last week. And I was monitoring that game. They do a great job with their live stream and their radio. And I saw, man, surely Coach Rogers isn't running that score up, 79-0. And as I looked, wow, he put in the second, the third team quarterback. They did not throw the ball much at all, just ran the ball. But North Dallas, obviously, very, very bad team. So unfortunate for them. I think first time in the playoffs since like 1962. So congratulations, Coach Todd Rogers. I think 14th straight year to the playoffs, getting through the first round of the playoffs for the Argyle Eagles. So what I mean, that is just so hard to do. I mean, what an amazing feat. CJ Rogers just threw 5 passes, but he's 5 for 5, 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ethan DePiro came in through 2 passes, 2 completions for 1 touchdown. And Drew Sneckenberg was 3 or 4, 24 yards and 1 touchdown. Hey, big play. Peyton Shoemake, man, 24 carries for 189 yards, averaging 7, almost 8 yards a carry. Tito Bice only had 2 carries, but 45 yards, averaging 22 and a half a carry and 1 touchdown. Knox Scoggins added 1 touchdown and 34 yards as well. But, they didn't throw the ball. They didn't have to do much to beat North Dallas. But next up, like I said, they take on Stephenville tonight. Stephenville's been one of their arch nemesis over the years, always a formidable opponent. But they are about a 3-touchdown favorite to beat Stephenville tonight. But, hey, it's Texas high school playoff action, so you never know what can happen. Sometimes teams don't always show their cards during the regular season, and that'll be a fun night at Globe Life Park. You can get the broadcast. The Argyle Eagles does a great job. Kenny Arthur and those guys over there do a fantastic job broadcasting. It won't be a live video stream tonight due to, I think, playoff and restrictions at Globe Life Park, at Globe Life Field. But you can get that game live on the Argyle Radio Network. Should be a good one. So, wow, 79-0. Hard to believe that one. But Argyle, I had a chance to visit with, reach out to George Dunham of the Ticket. He's got ties to Argyle. His kids play there. One of his sons is a coach there. And he says this is the best Argyle team they've had since 2014 and should beat Stephenville by 3 touchdowns. So there you have it. Thank you all so much for tuning in, the Dinko Gridiron Show. And we're normally live on Wednesdays, but we had a little adjustment in the schedule, live today on Thursday. So appreciate you being here. I'm John Piper. Grayson Nolet will be back next week. Always good stuff. And I'll have Mike Leslie joining us here shortly. Liberty Christian gets their first win of the season and a much needed win. Coach Stephen Greek, man, I had a chance to meet with him early in the season and looked like they had a really talented team. But the challenge is each and every week they face a really tough opponent. And Liberty Christian gets a win over Bishop Lynch, 35-21. Ty Strickland rushed for 182 yards on 3 touchdowns to lead Liberty Christian past Bishop Lynch. Both teams, it was their regular season finale, but due to COVID, the teams get into the playoffs. So Stephen Greek is excited about that. Hey, you wipe the slate clean and you start playoff action. His son Daniel Greek threw for 164 yards and a touchdown, 18 of 21. Good effort there. And they travel to San Antonio to play San Antonio Central this week. So they will be on the road. And I talked to one of the coaches earlier today. They feel confident they have a chance to win that game, win a playoff game. And you know what? You never know what can happen in the playoffs here in Texas high school football. So Braswell, man, they lost a tough one to McKinney, 34-31 in a tight one. Coming off that little lopsided loss to Denton Geyer, Coach Cody Moore and the Braswell Bengals, and it was tight all the way. A late Sheldon King touchdown was the difference, and McKinney picked up its first district win, 34-31 at C.H. Collins. Tristan McClary had 2 scores, ran for another to lead Braswell in the loss. Another big night for Tristan McClary, 22 of 37, 222 yards and 2 touchdowns, to only 1 interception. D. Gafford, not as much production running the ball. D. Gafford, 6 carries for 49 yards. Jamarin Sanford, 8 carries for 35 yards. And, they hope to get things going again. Braswell Bengals getting it going. All right. Well, I will be joined just shortly by Mike Leslie and Channel 8. And, man, he's doing a great job with all things Texas high school football. And we'll get a chance to visit with him shortly. And we'll see if he can connect. Actually, right on cue, Mike Leslie. Let's see if we can bring him in. How you doing, Mike?
How we doing?
Man.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, you are good. Man, you due to COVID, you're having to do a lot of your broadcast through this type of technology. I'm sure something a little different, but
just
very
hair.
similar. When I started this, and you and I met, I think, last year during the playoffs, and that's the cool thing about Texas high school playoffs. There's so much media attention. And you guys at Channel 8 and all the stuff you're doing for Friday Night Live coverage this year has really been special.
A lot of fun.
If I had a hat on, I'd tip the cap to you. With COVID, a lot of fans can't make it to the game. And, we talked last week. There are actually 3 different feeds. We took the night off and let the KNTU staff go over to Allen and do that one on the radio. But you had the Channel 8 YouTube feed. You had the Allen feed. So the fans are getting a lot of great coverage this year. And man, we'll talk about that here in a minute, but I want to really talk about you being here in the Dallas market. I know you're from New York originally, and you became a Texan, I think, in late 2015, joined WFAA about 5 or so years ago, right?
Yeah, about I guess 5.5 years ago, April of 15, I first came in, and been here ever since. And as the saying goes, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. And 5.5 years later, we're still here, riding strong.
Yeah, I think hey, Dale has the platform to talk politics if he wants to, but you or I need to stay off politics. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, so, I won't go too far down that path.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that is there's a lot of New Yorkers that are trying to get to Texas here, and there's a lot to like about it. The weather, the job market, people. People are friendly. I would say North Texas, Texas in general, is a pretty big melting pot for New Yorkers, folks from the Northeast. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've come across a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm from wherever in the New York area that isn't too far away from where I'm from," and it does still kind of catch me by surprise when somebody says, "Oh, 518, I know that area code." Most of the time, people are like, "What in the world is this phone number?"
I'm familiar with 212. 212 is like New York City, right?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that one. That's kind of like the 214 in this area, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, you were in Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, you started off, you studied broadcast journalism, TV, radio in college. So I'm thinking from a young age, you had your sights set on sports broadcasting. Is that right?
Yeah, I think probably at about 11 years old, I decided, hey, you know what? That looks like fun. Just watching SportsCenter or whatever. Like frankly, I think a lot of kids do. My father tried to kind of push me off of it. I'll stop short of that. Not push me off it. He wanted to make sure it was what I wanted to do. So he figured it would always be something in sports. What about being a sports agent or being what about going into sports medicine or whatever? Frankly, ventures that probably would have made me more money than I'm doing now. I think I was probably about 16 when he finally kind of threw his hands up in the air and said, "Listen, you know what you want to do? Go after it." And honestly, it was a good thing that he did it that way because it really kind of reinforced for me that this is really what I want to do. So it was good.
Well, I have a lot of kids that come up to me. I won't get into the whole story, but I started the Denko Gridiron Show about 4 years ago, just kind of as a fluke. Facebook Live was just coming on the scene, and I was talking to actually Adam Bodecker. I don't know if you met Adam.
Yeah.
He was a writer with the Denton Record Chronicle, and he covered some of the local high schools. I got to know him through that, and we were just chatting one day on the square here in Denton, and I said, "Have you thought about doing anything with video?" And traditional sports writers, it wasn't really on their radar yet, but I'd seen it really growing in the business community, and I just threw it out there. I said, "Hey, if you want to do something with video, I'll help put it together." And poof, here we are 4 seasons later. And it's really been my way to give back to the community and get plugged in. I grew up in Kentucky, great sports town, but a lot of kids will come to me and say, "Hey, Mr. Piper," or "Hey, John, how would I get into that?" And I said, "Hey, it's a great field to get into because you can always drop back into marketing, communications. The skills you learned in college apply to many different businesses and jobs."
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a skill set that is applicable to so many different things, and it can open up other possibilities, even if you don't necessarily go into broadcasting as a career. You do still set yourself up well for your future because having that ability to communicate that crosses all platforms.
100%. Well, hey, I have to ask you, you were in Charlotte, North Carolina, before you came to Dallas. Before that, you were doing some high school football in the New York area. How would you rate, there's a lot of great athletes that come out of New York. I think more of basketball, but I'm sure there's a lot of football talent. How would you rate the football or the athletes in general in New York, where you were from, versus the North Texas and Central Texas athletes?
Yeah, no, it doesn't really compare. I played high school football, high school basketball when I was a kid. I was an aggressively mediocre high school quarterback, and I don't think I would have seen the field down here. It's a different level. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some good athletes that have come out of New York State. There's some really good football players that have come out of there. It's possible, but just it makes me think of a story that I did a couple years back with Halapoulivaati Vaitai, the kid who went to I want to say it was Haltom, then went to TCU, now is playing for the Philadelphia Eagles and started for them in the Super Bowl the year that they beat the Patriots, which will drive my wife nuts that I'm talking about that as she's sitting just off camera. She's a big Patriots fan. She's from the Boston area. She won't like the mention of that, but I did a story on they call him Big V, and I was talking with this coach, and he was mentioning, the same year we had Big V, we also had, I think it was Lance Dunbar, the former Cowboys running back, was on that same high school team as Vaitai was. And he says, we had a pretty good team that year. I think we went 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. And I'm like, hang on a second. You had 2 future NFL players, and you had an okay season and went 2 rounds deep in the playoffs? Are you kidding me? A team with 2 future NFL players on the roster in New York State, in Massachusetts, where I spent my first 3 years out of college covering football, that team wins state 4 years in a row. The level of competition is just not the same. It's just not.
Well, we have to give your wife props. You just mentioned right off camera there. I think it's okay to say you're married to Aaron Moran, Channel 11 meteorologist. You can even say it, meteorologist. Do you get your weather information from her or from Channel 8?
It is a constant battle between her and Delkas as to who I get my weather information from. She usually wins that battle, but only by a hair.
Well, that'd be fun. Man, she does a great job. And, we're fortunate to have just, for the most part, great weather in North Texas. It does get a little dicey, December, January, especially when that freezing rain comes in. And boy, would be an interesting subject to have Aaron explain it to us, how all that happens and what causes that. Because I just know when it happens, don't get on the roads, right?
Yeah, no, she could run circles around me with that stuff in terms of her knowledge base on just forecasting in North Texas and the science that goes into all of it. It's to look at. I mean, I got a chance to see her study all of that over the course of a 3-4 year period to earn her degree, to earn her her meteorology, her status, frankly, as a meteorologist. It's intense. There's a lot that goes into it. It's we all, it's the running joke to kind of poke fun at the weatherman and they're right 20%. But one, I'm contractually obligated to say this as a man who's married to a meteorologist. They are right more often than that.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
But seriously, the science that goes into what they do it's hellaciously complex, and it's when you get a chance to see it on that level, it is honestly pretty impressive what they do.
Hey, a lot going on in the sports scene before we get into Texas high school football. I know you were following the NBA draft last night. You covered the Dallas Mavericks, as a great sports town. What are your thoughts on the draft and where the Mavericks ended up?
I was a little bit surprised to see so many teams, the Mavs included, bypass Tyrese Maxey, the kid out of South Garland that went to Kentucky, bypass RJ Hampton, the kid out of Little Elm that went down and played in New Zealand. I wasn't as surprised to see Jamias Ramsey from Duncanville drop he was expected to go kind of late first round, early second round. So I don't know if he was really in the mix for Dallas at 18. He might have been in the mix at 31. But those three, what a draft for local talent. There was another kid out of Duncanville that got drafted at the very end of the second round too. Just an incredible draft for local high school talent. It's obviously people talk about high school football in Texas, and for good reason. It's what it's been for decades. The high school basketball, especially in North Texas, down in Houston as well, there is some really, really good high school basketball. You guys have seen it at Geyer over the course of the last couple of years with Jacoby Coles and with Jalen Wilson, who's up at Kansas. It's kind of crazy. The talent, Devion Harmon, who's up at Oklahoma. The list just goes on and on and on.
The Geyer football team, that'd be interesting to see if they get out of that family, get a player maybe up to the NBA and the NFL would be very, very unique. They got a shot. Both have a shot at it, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, were you doing the draft coverage from your bunker there? I know I try to get you in studio, but I know
everything's from right here, man.
Everything's remote, right?
Yeah, everything I do, just about everything I do. The Friday nights when we go out and do those broadcasts is honestly the only night every week where I really go anywhere. Other than that, I'm here. I do interviews via, a Zoom connection, kind of like this. And almost every story that I have done for the last, we're pushing 8 months now, has been virtual, has been a conversation like this over an internet connection and whatever file video we have. Now, and part of the reason for that, Channel 8 has basically mandated that we're not going to do in-person interviews. There have been occasions where they'll make an exception because, hey, this is a really important story that we need to do in this way. There are occasions where we're going to do it in person, but we need to be extra safe. We need to do this. We need to do that. Obviously from a social distancing perspective, certain different techniques that we'll use were ordinarily, pre-pandemic, you just throw a lavalier microphone on a person's shirt and off we go. That's not happening anymore amid COVID-19. We're not, it's boom mics that are way up above or things along those where there are a lot of different techniques that we can do where you don't have to come in contact with another person, but still be able to conduct that in-person interview. But even still, that is frankly very rare. Personally, and it's different for each reporter at the station, with the different stories that they've done. But personally, in these 8 months, I've done one story that fits into that category where, hey, you know what? This is a really important story. We really need to do this in a way that is going to, frankly, look better than a Zoom connection is going to look. Let's go out and actually do this interview in person and do this story in person. But those are very few and far between right now.
Well, fans, if you're just now tuning in, featured guest today, Mike Leslie, Channel 8, ABC Dallas, sports reporter, broadcaster. And man, what's so fortunate about what you do at Channel 8 is you get to do a lot of different things, but this hone in on the Friday Night Lives. Man, you've been doing a great job. I tuned in some to the Geyer Allen game. You guys are taking a whole team out there. And I know it's not easy. Why don't you share with the fans, when the fans are at home and just put on their YouTube channel, they think, oh, somebody's out there with an iPhone or something. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. So why don't you give some credit to your team and tell us about what all goes into a Friday night production?
It's interesting the way that this has evolved, John, over the course of the last 3 years. When we first started doing this, it was myself and a guy named Landon Hoff, who used to work at Channel 8. He's now living in Colorado with his wife and working for a TV station out there. He was one of our main guys on our digital team. And it was something that I had kind of wanted to do, these broadcasts. I love doing play-by-play. It is just kind of a pet favorite thing of mine that I love to do it. And so I'd been kind of pushing like, hey, what if we did this? Like, on Facebook Live was the initial platform where we did it. We're doing a YouTube Live now, but same general concept, just a live stream over the internet of high school football games. And that first year, Landon was really doing the heavy lifting, at least on, I was doing a lot of the prep work that, got us in a position where we could say we knew anything about these teams. Landon was doing the heavy lifting on Friday nights when it came to, he was doing color commentary while also running the camera. And also on occasion, whenever there was a score, which obviously in football is fewer and farther between, so that's what made it even possible to do it this way, he was filling out the score graphic as well. So he's, juggling 7 plates at the same time and trying to make this happen. And it worked, but it was definitely kind of the low budget jump off point way to do it. And I think really that first season was proof of concept. And we showed, hey, you know what, this can work. This is something that people will want to watch. And this is maybe something that we should build upon. And over the course of so that was the fall of 2018 was the first year we did this. And then last year, and then certainly this year, we've been able to kind of improve the overall production quality by adding a couple more bodies. Having a dedicated camera person and a dedicated color commentator was certainly an upgrade just by itself. So we've got a 4-man team that we roll out there every week. Clay Marshall's our director, Dwayne Watkins our photographer, and somebody that in the Denton County area, certainly Tarrant County area, a name that people might remember, John Diarse, a former wide receiver at TCU, also played at LSU, is our color commentator now. And it's been a lot of fun to watch this kind of grow and improve over the course of the last couple of years. And this year obviously has been a little bit more fun, frankly, if only because amid COVID, and it's hard to say that something good has come from COVID, but I guess, this kind of does fit into that category. Prior to this year, you couldn't do a Friday night live broadcast in the state of Texas of a UIL game. The UIL would not allow that this year because of COVID, because of the reduced attendance figures, obviously, at high school football games. They decided to make this permissible across the state. So needless to say, we jumped on that. And it's just the quality of game on a Friday night is going to be greater than a Thursday night. You're not going to have Denton Geyer and Allen playing on a Thursday night. You're just not. Thursday night games, frankly, exist in the first place for the most part because of school districts that have too many teams and too few stadiums to fit all of their games on Friday nights or on Saturdays.
Stadiums, and it makes sense. Building a big stadium with like C.H. Collins, Denton High has an on-campus stadium, and Denton Braswell's building one, so that way Denton ISD can have most of their games on Friday nights moving forward. It'd probably be about 2 years away, but a lot of money. A lot of money is spent on facilities here in Texas. That's kind of is that a little mind-boggling coming from the North Carolina market and the New York market?
When I first saw Eagle Stadium in Allen, all I could think was, this is better. I went to Hofstra University up on Long Island, which until my senior year of college had a football program, had a decent 1AA football program, produced Marcus Colston, the old Saints wide receiver, Wayne Crabette, the old Jets wide receiver, Lance Shelters, who played safety at the Titans. I mean, there are some guys that came out of Hofstra and had some success. It was a decent program on the field. Didn't do as great as they would have liked from an attendance standpoint, and as a result, it got killed in 2009. Allen Stadium is nicer than Hofstra's old football stadium, which is now their lacrosse stadium. And it's, I'll say it's as nice, it's bigger. Hofstra Stadium is probably as well apportioned as Eagle Stadium, but it's a 12,000 seat version instead of an 18,000 seat version. I mean, Eagle Stadium is incredible, and they're not alone.
Prosper Stadium, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The new McKinney ISD Stadium,
which is
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
All these stadiums are very nice. And,
I
they
mean,
take
even
care of the media as
CH
well.
Collins, like you were talking about before, which is a little bit older and maybe didn't cost as much as Eagle Stadium or McKinney Stadium, but that place is gorgeous. I mean, that place leaves absolutely nothing to be desired. That's a fantastic stadium.
Denton County is going to continue to grow in that direction north. And, I think Denton ISD has a tremendous amount of room for growth out that 380 corridor. But hey, speaking, one reason I want to have you on, Mike, you've covered 3 games that fall right into our coverage area. You did Flower Mound Jaguars early in the year, I think with Timberview, and you done the Denton Guyer Denton Ryan game, and of course you had the Denton Guyer Allen game. I think that's it for our coverage area, but you're doing games each and every week. What were your thoughts? Let's take a step back. Denton Ryan, that was getting national attention.
Yeah, it was.
Denton Ryan, Denton Guyer, as they've been trying to play each other for many years, both top-notch programs, 6A and 5A. They play at CH Collins, and Denton Ryan comes up with the victory. And, it came down to the wire, but what were your observations of that game and those programs early in the season?
Yeah, I mean, John, I said it that week leading up to it, and it felt like hyperbole, but when I really broke down the numbers, it really wasn't. That was the best game across the country that night. There was not a bigger high school football game in America that night. 2 teams that were both ranked in national rankings. Pardon me, but my memory's not serving me at this point. It's been a month and a half, but one of them was ranked in the USA Today rankings. I think that was Denton Guyer, and Denton Ryan was ranked in the Max Preps rankings. I think Ryan is now ranked in both. It was the only meeting of nationally ranked high school football teams that week. It was the best game in the country. And I mean, how often can you say that about a high school football game? But it fit into that category quite nicely. And it delivered. I mean, that game was a lot of fun to watch. It was a lot of fun to broadcast for sure. And just the talent that was on that team.
Town, not only 2 top teams in the country, but both of them come from the same school district. I mean, unbelievable. And a lot of talent on those teams.
The idea that both of them played for a state title a year ago from the same town, that they were only the second. It was only the second time that it happened since I believe like 1954. And the other time was Denton Ryan and Denton Guyer in 2010. I mean, it's kind of crazy what those 2 programs have built over the course of the last 20 years. It's off the charts. And it's not just as simple as, oh, there must be something in the water up there, that there's a bunch of good football players in Denton. No, there's a system that they've built up there. And you're starting to see even Denton Braswell start to benefit from that and build something themselves. Not obviously to the level of Ryan and Guyer yet, but they're coming. I mean, that is a program that is certainly on the rise.
What are some of the things you've noticed? You did the Flower Mound Jaguars. They had a big win. I think set some school records last week, putting 63 points on the board. They got off to a little slow start, but I think that Flower Mound Timberview game was a little lower scoring earlier in the year. Any observations, notes from the Jaguar game?
Yeah, I was impressed with just their defense in general. I mean, that's a good Mansfield Timberview team that we actually have again this week. Their game against Aledo is a district championship game in 5-5 AD2. That's a good Timberview football team that they kind of held in check. I mean, that game was scoreless with, I think, about 3-4 minutes left to go in the second quarter. Their defense is really good. And the fact that I hadn't seen, honestly, the score that you're talking about, that they put up 60 plus this past week, that's a really good sign for them going into the postseason, because that's a team that has a defense that can, with Stone Eby kind of leads the way there on the defensive line. That's a really good defense. Colton Vonney, I'm trying to pick back names out of my brain from.
You got to deal with schools from all over North Texas. So, hey, I'm impressed, man. That's really good.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. Stone Eby's certainly the bell cow anyway on that defense. But the thing that sticks out in my brain about that game as it relates to Flower Mound more than anything else is Colton Votney, who's their big defensive tackle. they put in there a running back. He had one or two. I want to say he ran both of their touchdowns in. No, I'm sorry, just one. The other was a passing touchdown. But to put big 67, I want to say he wears, and he went rumbling into the end zone from a couple of yards out. That was it was very Refrigerator Perry-esque of him, and they're a good football team that I think could surprise somebody in that first, at the very least in the bi-district round, and maybe even in the area round too.
Yeah, good stuff. And then man, the game that had a bunch of eyes on it as well. How rare is it you get 2 Geyer games as well, but you travel to Allen Eagle Stadium. The big buzz was Allen 52-0 at home, 80 regular season game wins. And Geyer was trying to, I think there was a hashtag floating around the Denton Geyer area, hashtag 52-1, but it didn't quite happen. Allen gets off to a couple, like right first play of scrimmage, a couple big plays, rushing the ball, and gets up to a big lead. And it just, I was talking to Coach Webb earlier this week. We do Geyer Radio, and he said those were 18 points. You wipe those away, and it's even. But the ball doesn't always bounce right because it's not round like a basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was. I almost I feel like Coach Webb might have a bone to pick with me, only because I did hype that up so much that, oh my gosh, Allen's won 52 in a row, and could this be the week that Geyer comes in, such a good team, and could they beat him or whatever? I feel like all I really did was just lob up bulletin board material for Terry Campbell and the Allen Eagles to say, you see what he thinks is going to happen tonight? Go out there and prove him wrong. And did they ever? I mean, they came roaring out of the gates. And I think, we said it on the broadcast, and I think it bears repeating. That was a Denton Geyer team that was not at full strength. You didn't have Knox Boyd. Yeah, there were a couple of big injuries. Knox Boyd, the starting right tackle,
was out. That's right.
Yeah. Grayson O'Bear is a big gap for them to not have him in the passing game. And then Jordan Eubanks, the Florida State commit, was out that game as well. There were some key pieces that were not on the field that game. I'm not saying that necessarily makes up an 18-point gap. I'm not trying to say that they would have won necessarily because of that, but that matters. I guess really more than anything and I got to imagine there are some Denton Geyer fans out there watching this show. I don't think that you necessarily need to look at that as some big blow to your 6A D2 state title hopes, because one, that's obviously a fantastic Allen team. And two, again, you weren't playing with your full boat. So, I think Rodney Webb would have liked to see them, make a tackle or two. Yeah. There was a stretch there from 7-3 to 28-10 where Denton Geyer literally did not tackle someone on a play from scrimmage. It was 4 consecutive offensive snaps for Allen that were touchdown runs. The touchdown that made it 7-3, and then back-to-back 52-yard touchdowns runs and an 82-yard touchdown run on 3 successive possessions to start the possession. That's not what you want out of your defense, there's no doubt. But hey, at the same time, credit to them. That was an 11-point game in the third quarter, and it was John Diarse, the color commentator for our Friday night football broadcast. He and I looked at each other like, there might be something happening here. Like it hadn't fully materialized yet. And credit to Allen, they kind of they punched back. But for a moment there, it was like, whoa, are we about to see something serious happen here? So credit to Webb and company for even making that a football game when it was 42-10 at one point, and then real quick it was 42-31.
Hey Mike, I meant to ask you earlier. It was just kind of a fluke when I moved here in '97. Somehow got on Channel 8, started watching Dale Hansen. I grew up as a sports guy. You came from Charlotte, obviously another big market. Charlotte's a big market. Dallas a big market. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Hey, how did you get connected with Dale Hansen? I assume you had to interview with him before you got hired. And then secondly, what's it like working for Dale Hansen as well?
It's funny. When I first came here, he said to me, you're going to go around town. You're going to come across people that love me. And you do. There are plenty of people in North Texas that are big, big Dale Hansen fans. And he said, you're also going to come around town and find people that absolutely cannot stand me. And he was right. I mean, that has been my experience over the course of 5.5 years now.
That's probably what drew me to him. Just that edge, that edginess. He's never backed down, and we can talk more about it as well. This would be a good segment.
Sure.
Of saying, not so positive things about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban and, you name it. And that's, keeping it raw and real. And when I started this little show 4 years ago, I probably was like, man, if Dale Hansen can do it, maybe John Piper can do it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, that is a big part of his draw. Obviously, personally, you're not going to get me to say a bad thing about the man. He has been as helpful to me in my career as anybody has been. The way in which he's taken me under his wing from the moment I walked in here, he's been truly a mentor of mine. And without getting too far in the weeds here, what I think a lot of people maybe don't fully understand and appreciate is his generosity. I'm not going to go too far down that path for a variety of different reasons, but there are things that he's done for people that work at that station that would blow your mind.
That's awesome.
And the stories for, to steal an old Jason Garrett parlance. That's a couple lemonade conversation after the fact, but he's done a lot of things to help a lot of people.
Well, you know what? One cool thing about doing live TV, and one reason people tune in at the first year or so, they tuned in to see if there was a train wreck. Hey, can John and Adam pull this thing off? And it was cool, right? But the thing about live TV is you never know what you're going to get. And matter of fact, we've got Dale Hansen with us right now.
Oh my gosh. How long have you been watching, big man?
I've been watching long enough to know that you're still employed.
Yeah, that was some good answers.
Yeah.
Well, Dale, hey, first and foremost, man, I want to thank you for all you do for the community. Mike kind of teed it up for me. I know you do a lot of charitable work, but I think you've been in this market with Channel 8 for 37 years. Is that right?
Yeah, be 1983, whatever the heck that was, at Channel 8. And I came to Dallas in August of 1980. So it's been 40 years on Dallas television, and 38 of them at Channel 8. So,
I think I've reached out to you a time or two over these first 4 years. And, like any media, when I first reached out to George Dunham, I think he gave me the Heisman, hey, what's this? And then George Dunham's been on. So I appreciate you all being part of this, because it's really all about the kids and the community. And, I know you've seen a lot of great athletes come through Dallas. And I guess a question for both of you. I know, Dale, you've seen a lot of them over the years, but what are maybe the top two high school athletes you've seen come through North Texas, Dale, and go on to play, the college game at the highest level and then professionally as well?
Wow. Yeah. That's a pretty extensive list, because I've seen a lot of them, but Jesse Armstead will always be one of my favorites. And then the other one that just has always stuck with me, because one of the very first stories I ever did was Spud Webb. I did a story on him when he was like a freshman in high school, and he's like 5'6", 5'7", dunking a basketball. And the fact that I still run into Spud and Jesse on occasion, and we talk about the fact that I covered them when they were in high school. But you're right. It's one of the things I did when I came here, and Mike and I have talked about this a lot, and it's one of the things I like about Mike best. He's picked up on this high school coverage that we started in 1980. And as arrogant as it sounds, I started in 1980 because nobody was really doing it. And then Mike's just kind of picked it up and gone from there, because it's an amazing place for high school athletes.
Yeah, tremendous. I shared with you, I'm from Kentucky, and, basketball is pretty big there. Football's not quite as big, but we were talking before, I think you joined us. You may have heard some of the talk, Dale, about just the venues, the facilities, the indoor facilities, the commitment to the programs, the, year round. We got weather where year round they can work on their games. And of course, they've got, the professional sports in the area to kind of aspire to be like. I don't know. Now I'll segue into this one. I don't know if anybody wants to aspire to be like a Dallas Cowboy right now.
Well, John, let me tell you one quick story here. It was in the summer of the fall rather of 1980. And Michael laugh at this because I very seldom go anywhere anymore. But I actually used to go out and cover all the stories myself. And so I was going over to SMU to do a story on one of their great football teams. And I got lost along Mockingbird area, and I'm driving around. And then all of a sudden I see this huge stadium with the big press box. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. So I walked on the field at SMU's practice and was there to get some interviews and the like. And Frank Beavers, who was the football coach at Highland Park, looked up at me and said, "Dale, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, do you guys practice at SMU?" He said, "No, this is the Highland Park football stadium."
Oh, God.
And SMU's down the road about a half a mile or something. And I'm telling you, I was stunned.
Yeah, coming from Iowa, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to see Highland Park's stadium in 1980 and find out that that's where the high school kids play, I was absolutely stunned. And then, of course, we just had an arms race ever since.
And to think now, by comparison, Highland Park Stadium is it's still a nice, high school football stadium, but by comparison,
oh yeah, they're landlocked in there. I've been down there. They've got a parking garage, but they don't have any land to expand. So, have they talked about that, Dale, over the years, trying to maybe go out somewhere where they'd have to travel? I mean, it's nice having an on-campus stadium, so I doubt they'd ever want to do that.
No, at least I've never heard about it anyway. Mike might know if they have, but I've never heard that. Have you, Mike?
Not that I've heard. Yeah, no. I think I think it's big enough to house the number of fans that they've got, and it does the job. So it's maybe not gleaming and fancy like some of these new stadiums are, but I think it's plenty to do what they need to.
Dale, I've always enjoyed that. I think you call it the high school scholar of the week. Is that the name of the segment?
Scholar athlete, yeah.
Scholar athlete of the week.
Yeah.
Everything I do in podcasts, everything I try to impact to the kids that, hey, you're a student first before you're an athlete. How has that impacted maybe kids in the classroom? You think you've been able to impact the kids off the field and back in the classroom with that segment?
I maybe some. I've always talked about this. Kids, when I was a kid, you're 16, 17 years old. You never think about being 25 or 30. That's just never ever going to happen. It's not something you need to be concerned about. But one of my favorite stories and one of my favorite young people is a kid named Reggie Finch who played at Irving MacArthur. And his sophomore year, he returned to punt in the playoff games. He returned to punt in the final minute to actually win the game. I forget who they were playing, but the team decided to kick, and Reggie Finch took it back 94 yards in the final minute to win the game. The next week, he flunked out. And a couple of months later, I'm speaking at the Irving MacArthur athletic banquet. And I had every parent and school officials were telling me, "Dale, we know you're a big supporter of no pass, no play. But this is not the school to talk about it because it cost us a possible state championship when Reggie Finch flunked out and couldn't play." And as people who know me probably know, I then basically did my entire speech about the value of no pass, no play. Reggie Finch, as a sophomore, came up to me and said, "Mr. Hanson, I promise you I will never fail again. I'm going to at least make sure that I pass to stay eligible." He ended up going to Oklahoma. He had some issues along the way in his life. Now runs a major charity organization here in North Texas. And I think I had a direct impact on his life. And he has said I did several times, and I think I did. I hope the Scholar Athlete program does. And part of it is because I was such a lousy student. All I did was just enough to get by so that I could play basketball and baseball and football and stay active in sports. I didn't care about the classroom at all. And
Yeah, that's changed a lot
Big
over
in
the
my
years.
life, and I had to spend a great deal of time, I think, overcoming that. You know, I had no desire to go to college, didn't go to college, so I try to explain to kids, you know, that hey, what you do and what you learn at the age of 17, trust me, someday you're going to be 65, you know, and you're going to be 45 and have your own kids, and you need to be ready for that, and I wasn't for a long time.
I had a chance just this week, literally 2 days ago. A middle school coach from Kentucky has moved to the Trophy Club area, and it was 40 years ago, Dale, that I played for him, and me and another teammate that lives in the area got to go visit him, and we were just telling stories. And same thing, as an eighth grader, I could have gone down a really bad path, but he had me for 3 years, and I told him, I said, by playing basketball and football for you, you kept me on a path. You know, hey, we all fall short, right? But I could have gone down a really bad path.
Oh, yeah.
That's what high school, middle school, and high school sports does for a lot of kids. Mike Leslie turned out all right. You know, he was a scholar athlete up there in New York. And hey, Dale, take us back to the time when Mike Leslie reached out to the station and was looking to join you there. Talk us through some of those early interviews and when Mike was coming in to Channel 8. And
Yeah. This is the worst thing I hate about my job, or at that time, even now to some extent. But is the hiring of new employees. I hate that process because I tend to be the guy that whoever gets my ear last gets my best ear. Um, and I hate telling a young person who's all excited about coming to Dallas to cover the Cowboys and the Mavericks and Rangers and Stars and everything that I've chosen somebody else. At the same time, it's such an incredibly subjective business that you just have to look for something to pop. Whether it's in the resume itself, whether it's in the interview, whether it's on the audition tape that they send out. And Mike just popped to me the first time we met. We had dinner at the Palm. I took him back to the hotel where he was staying when we had flown him in for the interview. He was incredibly gracious, incredibly nice, said all the right things. And then about a day or a couple of days later, I get a nice long email from him. And I just said to everybody in the station, we need to hire this kid. We just need to hire this kid. And Mike and I have talked about this at length. He and I have got a great deal of similarities in our past and our professional lives. I never played quarterback like he did, but still, we've got a great deal in common. And it was actually said, I think I can share this story to some extent. It was actually said, we don't think he's the guy, but if you want him, you're going to be responsible for hiring him. And I said,
that happens in any organization. I've heard those stories in the business world. And hey, for you students out there listening, whether you want to play college football, basketball, baseball, that story about the long email, I mean, that, and nowadays that a handwritten note goes a long way because nobody gets those anymore, right? So that's a great lesson for the student athletes that are tuning in or watching this on the replay. Great story, Mike.
I mean, most people who I've interviewed over the years will come in with, if they've done their homework, you know, they'll say something about what I've done, what Channel 8 has done. They'll say something that makes that connection. Ultimately, it does fall back on their talent, of course, of what you see on tape. But then that follow up and a comment here and there, I mean, it really can be the difference maker. I mean, the problem is that when we hired Mike, I think we were probably going through about 125, 150 applicants at the time.
Yeah, Dallas, one of the marquee sports markets, broadcast markets for sure.
But as I like to remind the people who had questions about Mike 5.5 years ago, I'm the guy that made the ultimate decision. How I do, and he's been outstanding. And just like me, not every day. Not every day. And I find that I swear to you, I find that funny, maybe, because every time he does something, I'm like, I'm sorry, what'd you do? I end up laughing because it just reminds me of when I was his age, what I used to do.
Okay, just pushing the envelope,
He
man.
knows this. I'm not saying anything that I haven't said publicly, and I haven't
No.
said privately. I'm a huge Mike Leslie fan.
Well, Mike, to switch gears, what was it like when you first came in? And you heard that you got the job. I mean, was Dale intimidating that first year or so working side by side?
I just want to just make note real quick that I think it was about 10, 12 minutes ago, maybe a little bit more than that you brought Dale on. And as is prone to happen when Dale enters a conversation, nobody else says a word. This is the first words I've said since Dale has joined the conversation.
And that's okay. Dale, you earned the right, and we appreciate it, man.
No, I mean, honestly, no, he wasn't intimidating. I think maybe in the interview, maybe a little. I think I was intimidated by the whole interview process. Dale talked about kind of the similarities that he and I have in our pasts. One of those similarities is we came here from a job that we got fired from. I was very much in need of a job. And I think maybe more than anything else, I was intimidated by the gravity of the moment for my own life. I needed that job in a very big way. I needed this job. But I think the way in which he kind of, I mean, I was talking about it before he jumped on, the way in which he kind of brought me in, and I don't know, just obviously from a mentorship standpoint, that was a big part of it, but just the way in which I think he kind of built up my confidence, which was at that point coming off of being fired in Charlotte, wasn't maybe at the highest of levels. It meant a lot, and it made a big difference in kind of how I started my time here at Channel 8. So no, I wouldn't say intimidating. It's funny. He's told me at a couple of different points that he's a little bit easier to work for now than maybe he was 20 years ago. He was a little bit more of a fire plug back in the day. So the mistakes that I've made, I've heard about them, but maybe not in the full-throated way that I might have if I made those mistakes in 2002, perhaps.
Hey, for the podcast listeners, we are joined special guest Mike Leslie and the legendary Dale Hansen from Channel 8, ABC here in Dallas, man. This is awesome. Hey, this segue a little bit to Dallas Cowboy talk. Hey, you guys are being raw and real, and I appreciate it. And hey, I've lost a job too, and I get it. You get the better version of yourself once you get your knees, or you step in that pothole, or go off the edge of the road. You know, I think we all learn from those situations. So appreciate you sharing that, Mike. But the Cowboys, Dale, do you ever get any pressure from the brass to say, hey, don't talk so bad about the Cowboys, that may hurt our advertisers? Or has that ever impacted you guys as far as a sports journalist?
No, I've never had that. I've had a couple of people who are big Cowboys fans in management, and they'll sometimes drop a little nugget in there like, gee, you're hard on the Cowboys. But in fact, in 1983, when I was hired and I got the job broadcasting the Cowboys games with Brad Sham, Marty Haig, the great legendary news director at the time, one of his big concerns was, he said, we like the fact that you're not afraid to criticize the Cowboys, and we don't want to lose that by you being part of the broadcast. So no, that's never been an issue. It's part of it's part of what I do. What I find the funniest about it is when the Cowboys are bad, some people, not as many as it used to be, but some people will be critical of me being critical of the Cowboys. And when the Cowboys are good, I'm accused of being a cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys. And I've had that a lot. That when they were winning Super Bowls, that I was nothing but an apologist for Jerry Jones and a cheerleader for the Cowboys. And I'm like, no, I'm an equal opportunity offender. When they're good, I'll say they're good. When they're bad, I'll say they're bad. And not everybody does that, but I think I certainly have.
Well, Dale, when I was talking with Mike recently at C.H. Collins, it was that Denton Geyer game, Mike, you mentioned with COVID, you're having to do a lot of stuff with Dale and help produce a lot of his segments there that he does from the ranch there. I believe it's the Moon Shadow Ranch. Is that right, Dale?
Yeah.
And
It's a T. Graham Brown song that I just love. It's on.
That's next level research, by the way.
Well, yeah, I'm learning from you guys. I've learned that it's helped me. You learn to ask some questions and reach out to folks. But hey, I do want to ask. You guys are spending a lot of time together. Post COVID. Dale, does it ever get to the point where
some nights
where you want to send him on assignment, maybe send him on the road, or how's that been?
No, that's not my job, and we're very restricted. Obviously, I mean that's a WFAA decision, and I think it's the right decision, obviously. But I think we're both very careful. I'm probably even more careful than 99% of the population because I check off every box. I'm old, I'm fat, I've got a bad lung problem. It amazes every doctor I've ever been to that I don't have diabetes. But I check off almost every box that if I get COVID, I'll be dead by Thursday. So we're very careful about it.
Mike's cracking up. You can't see him, Dale.
No,
you had a little humor.
Mike goes out and does have to go out some, but I'm not worried about that. I don't think that's ever been an issue for you either, has it, Mike?
No, I mean, kind of like you say, it's infrequent. I mean, obviously the Friday nights for the broadcast, that's you can't do that from home. Other than that, I'm here 99% of the rest of the time. Whatever story I'm doing is from here. It was a rarity this morning, actually, that I went up to Sunnyvale and shot not an interview, but the stand-up up there. I did the interview via a Zoom call, but we needed to get some B-roll, and I figured, all right, if we need to get some B-roll, I might as well shoot the stand-up up there as well. But a lot of times I'm shooting the stand-up, in the same spot that I do the 6 o'clock sportscast. So yeah, other than the broadcast, by and large, I'm here. So.
Hey guys, out of respect for your time, I've got really 2 more wrap-up questions. If you got about 2 minutes still.
Sure.
Do you think we'll get to a state championship game? We're seeing more and more cancellations with COVID, especially at the 4A level. Obviously there's been 5A, 6A level cancellations. Maybe start that one with Mike. Do you think we'll make it to AT&T Stadium to crown a Texas high school football champion this year?
I do think we'll get there. I think you're going to see a possibly, I don't want to say undeserving champion, but you're going to probably see some wonky championship games with teams that you wouldn't have expected to be there, because I think there are going to be some, frankly, forfeitures. We've already seen some during these playoffs, and teams that should have been playing in the state semis or playing in the state championship game just won't be there because they got hit at the exact wrong time by COVID-19. But I don't really see the UIL giving up. I think they're gonna keep the foot on the gas, and they're gonna keep pushing through despite what has been happening.
And Dale, one of your unplugged segments was about when Denton Ryan had it was very controversial. The Frisco schools were going to cause them a forfeit, and then I think they took some pressure, rethought it, and said, no, we're not going to make it a forfeit game. But you did one of your unplugged segments on that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Mike's right. I'm not as big a fan of these sports being played as a lot of people are. I tend to buy into what a friend of mine, David Holmes, the CEO of Mary Kay, and when this all started back in March with the pandemic, his argument then was we need to just shut everything down for 4 to 6 weeks, just lock everything up airtight, and that would enable us to get it under control. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We didn't do that, but I think Mike's exactly right. The UIL and the high schools and the parents, they want to play. I think it'll be a pretty rough road to get there for a lot of teams, a lot of players, a lot of kids, a lot of schools. But I think we'll get there in some fashion. But I do kind of cover it, and the enthusiasm I have for covering these games, quite frankly, is tempered a little bit by the fact that I'm not real sure they should be playing these games.
And hey, last question. And hey, guys, really appreciate your time today. This has been fantastic. Dale, we'll start with you on this one because you've seen a lot of changes over your career in radio and television. especially with COVID and the emphasis on doing things like we're doing right now, where do you see the future of broadcasting and, more importantly, sports programming moving forward?
Well, that might be a question that even I cannot talk about enough. You know, I mean, Mike and I have talked about this a lot, and I think he probably needs to have a better answer than me, because I won't be a part of that. But it's in many ways it's better, I would argue, because we do have access through this system of talking to people that we never had before. But there is a disconnect. I mean, I don't think you can ever replace the value of just sitting next to a guy in a locker room,
Yes,
and chatting him up and getting some real honest answers. I think you'll see cutbacks at different levels of, travel, for example. Like, we don't travel with the Cowboys like we used to. I'm interested to see next year if we go to Cowboys training camp, even, for example. Will we go to the camp and cover it every day like we have for 40 years, or will there be cutbacks there? It'll be a change, but I still think there's a place for local sports in particular. And I absolutely believe that it does start with the high schools, and that's what Mike has picked up on. And I think there'll always be a place for us. I think there'll always be a need for us. But will you have to adapt? Yeah. And Mike is good at that kind of stuff. And as Mike is about to tell you, I'm sure here now, I'm not. I had to have my wife set this thing up, or I would have never been able to come on. I don't know how any of this stuff works. And I'm not real interested in learning, quite frankly. But I think young guys like Mike Leslie will pick it up and figure out how to do it going forward.
Hey, Mike, before you answer that question, was Dale able to keep this a secret from you? Or did you have any idea he was coming on today?
He actually was. That came as a big surprise when he popped up on the camera. I figured that, one of your co-hosts was going to jump on or something like that when I saw the square start popping up. And
I like the surprise.
yeah, no,
Most folks are conservative. They don't like, I had a segment last year called the Fan Zone, where we'd have fans kind of come in and do like what Dale is doing. And it makes everybody nervous, but I kind of like that, Dale. What do you think?
It's hard, as Mike also knows, it's hard for me to keep a secret, but since it was kind of a quick turnaround to do this, and
yeah, I really appreciate it.
I was happy to do it. And as Mike says, all you got to do is ask me a question. I'll fill your show for you.
Yeah.
I apologize, and I'll apologize to Mike again later. But I said, don't blame me for this, Mike. This was John's idea.
Yeah.
Don't blame me.
And Mike, before you close us out, I'd love to have you guys, as this playoff run continues, maybe we a shorter segment, maybe we can pop on again before the season's over. But Mike, final thoughts on where the future of sports programming and the digital age is headed? Yeah,
I mean, I think that there will always be a need for what we do. What space that actually holds, who knows? I don't know. I've only been doing this for basically 10 years. I graduated from college in 2010. I've been hearing all this time, even going back to like my freshman year of college, 2006, and I'm hearing from, professors and things along those lines, I don't know what direction this is going. Everything's changing. I don't know how long this is going to last. I've been hearing that refrain for like 14, 15 years. And while there have been modifications, while there have been things that have changed about the business, at least so far, it hasn't gone anywhere. Now I'm 33 years old. Knock on wood, it doesn't go anywhere. I need it to not go anywhere. But I don't know. There's just kind of always been this boogeyman off in the future of, it's all going to go away. It's all going to go away. Well, it hasn't yet. And I don't know. I don't think it is going away. It's just like Dale said, you have to be adaptable to find those pockets where it's changing. But the general concept of covering sports, of covering news, of, bringing information to the public, I don't think that's really going anywhere. And especially from a sports perspective, and especially from a live sports perspective, it's like the only DVR proof thing that's left. So I think there is still value there.
Well, hey, for Mike Leslie, Dale Hansen, I'm John Piper. We're going to sign off. I thought I'd never be able to say that, Dale. So thank you so much for joining, Mike Leslie. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Appreciate all you guys do for North Texas and all the kids. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, John.
I'm Mike Lucy from Fox 4. Make sure to tune in to the Denko Gridiron Show.
Hey guys, boy, that was special, unplanned. We didn't get to cover everything we like to cover normally, but the great Dell Hansen, Mike Leslie from Channel 8 tuning in on this special Thursday live edition of the Denko Gridiron Show. Thank you all so much for being a part of this one, and we'll talk to you soon.